time when I used to teach at Purna Prajna College. That was a time when Purna Prajna was known for literary activities, especially plays and drama. So the idea was, if you want to get a rank, you came to MGM. If you want to do good arts, you came to PPC. And most of the teachers of PPC used to assemble in Carr Street and sit at this Soremat, veranda and talk up to 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Only 2 teachers from MGM used to attend our informal evening session. One was, I think, Professor Narti. He was a teacher of Hindi. And another, I just don't remember anyway, it's a long time ago. So, glad to be here. Let me begin my speech with a little grammar. These 2 prepositions in English, in and on, and one conjunction, and. These 3 words are extremely dangerous for students of literature. See what happens. Buddhism and literature, Protestantism and literature, Gandhi in literature. We are led to believe that there are 2 independent entities, A and B, and you want to see how A is reflected in B, or how B comes out in A. This is called concatenation in computer terminology. You have string A, literature, string B, a social movement, something like that, and you want to see how this comes out in this. So you talk about Gandhi's influence. You take the novels of Rajaram, you take the novels of Mulk Raj Anand, you take the novel Kantapura and talk about the character Murthy, how he responds to Gandhi. This is all very fine, till you begin to ask certain historical and conceptual questions. What is freedom movement? Take an example. I got up, readied myself, and went to the office. Readied myself, I got myself ready. That word ready includes a series of processes. I brush my teeth, have a cup of tea, read newspapers, have a bath, shave myself, catch a bus. A series, this readying yourself includes a series of activities. Freedom movement is not one thing, one essence, one concrete entity. It has many things in it. Many things. We'll talk about it. That is 1. 2. Literature sometimes is very conservative. It takes up issues totally devoid of, unconscious of the historical conjuncture in which those ideas are being talked about. Today, you simply cannot talk about freedom movement in literature as if not a single day has lapsed after 1960s. What is the context in which we are trying to talk about literature and how it takes up freedom movement? We are talking about it in a world of extreme right-wing nationalism, not only in India, but the world over. The right is today an international phenomenon. Abe's Japan, Abe was very recently assassinated. Trump's America, you know how Trump's administration speaks. You have Boris Johnson's England, which led it to Brexit. The rise of the new right in France, which is now a very significant force there. The rise of nationalism in Germany. You won't be surprised if this neo-Nazi salute comes back very soon there. Why? Even the so-called communist China today speaks of patriotism and nationalism. We are in a world in which the right is staging a comeback. It is in this conjuncture we are now trying to talk of literature and freedom movement. Now look at this freedom movement carefully. Ambedkar did not participate in the freedom movement. He did not believe in the way the Indian National Congress conceptualized freedom and the nation and the state. The right, represented by Savarkar, did not participate in the freedom struggle. Savarkar personally attended one or two programs, but it seems he also sent out a circular to the RSS asking it not to participate in the Indian National Congress freedom struggle. The whole of South India was very peaceful, except Madras and Bangalore. Nobody bothered about freedom struggle in India. It was, the freedom movement, whatever it is, was predominantly a Hindu, Hindi, North Indian phenomenon. David Washbrook, a very eminent Oxford scholar on Southeast Asian history, talks about this. He says, do not talk of, freedom movement as you see it in Attenborough's Gandhi movie. One great man gives a clarion call and a whole nation rises from its oblivion. No, something like that did not happen. The whole of Northeast Asia did not know that India existed. Right? Our idea of freedom struggle is a textual idea given to us in schools and universities. If you go back, it didn't happen like that. Chomsky speaks of looking at history from the other side. History as a process, as a water still flowing. And looking at history from this side of time. Chomsky speaks of this about, when he was speaking about Lenin. He says, we think that Lenin is the quintessential representative or the representation of communist movement in China. No, in Russia. He says no. Anton Paganov, we don't even know that name today. Rosa Luxemburg, Trotsky. These people were building Soviets, labor unions. They were educating the labor class, hoping that educated working class would elect their own government someday. Not immediately, someday. As Raymond Williams calls, a long revolution. Where was Lenin? He was somewhere in Switzerland. 1917, he appears in Russia, publishes his thesis, the 1917 thesis, and says revolution wants an objective condition, a subjective condition. The objective condition is ready, and what does he do? He effects a coup and takes over the state. Most of us today associate revolution with this violent armed struggle and taking over of the state. There was nothing like this in Marxism. When Lenin appeared, he was called a right-wing leftist. Look at the terminology. He was not considered leftist. And in Vengeance, Lenin called Anton Paganov an infantile leftist. We forget all these conflicts and processes and we look back, Lenin, clenched fist. We have to remember this when we talk of Gandhi. We look at Gandhi as a santa. Very recently, I think our Home Minister Amit Shah called Gandhi that Chatur Baniya. He was a clever Baniya. He was known as a clever Baniya. What we call freedom movement and the role of Gandhi in it should be taken back to the 19th century. And then you understand what was happening. And you have to understand what was happening in the light of what is happening today in the militant nationalism that we have today. When the British colonialism formalized itself in the 19th century, the actual takeover of India by the crown happens much later, but by 1830s you had a Supreme Court, you had some sort of bureaucracy, some administration structure was there. When this happened, India reacted to the colonial power in three important ways. The first was the traditionalist response. That is, look, Power has come and gone out of India. The Kushanas, the Greeks, the Huns, the Mughals, now the British. These people come and go. But our tradition, especially the Vedic tradition, this will stand. They call it Arsha Samskriti. They said, we have nothing to learn from these people. These outsiders who come and go, we have nothing to learn. Our culture is the best. It has everything in it. And they call the British, these traditionalists, call the British the Pashavi Shakti. Pashu, Pashavi, beastly power. We have nothing to learn from them. I'll come back to this. There are very important representatives of this traditionalist school, but I shall take up one person, Dayananda Saraswati, a little later. The second was the modernists. The modernists argued that our culture is junk, useless. The sooner we learn the science and technology from the West, the sooner we modernize ourselves, the better. There is nothing in ancient India. It's all useless. There were representatives for this school. In the middle of these two, the Samanvayakaras, neither the traditionalists nor the modernists, they were called the syncretists. And the primordial example for syncretism, the Samanvayakara, is Gandhi. Gandhi said, yes, there are problems with our culture, especially untouchability. There is a little work to be done there, but by and large, our culture is good. And he said, we have to teach the West its humanity. We have to help the West to remember and regain its humanity. Indian freedom movement should never be violent. It should be such a peaceful transformation that in liberating ourselves, we must also help the West to regain its humanity. And Gandhi said, well, technology is okay. Gandhi had a problem with technology, especially in the railways and the military. The best technology he could accept was the bicycle and the sewing machine. Other than that, he had a problem with technology. Let's not talk about it now. But Gandhi said, there is a little that we have to take from the West. By and large, our culture is good. There is a little work to be done here. Now, because of this, Gandhi comes under attack both by the rightists and by the progressive people. Besides Gandhi was another figure, and he was Ambedkar. We begin, I said India reacted to the colonial administration in three ways: the traditionalists, the modernists, and the syncretists. We generally say that Raja Rammohn Roy was the modernist. I should say Ambedkar was the first modernist. Ambedkar said, you cannot build a nation on religious principle. He publishes this article, this monograph in 1945, Pakistan or the Partition of India. I'll talk about it now, a little later. Let's go back to the traditionalists. Look at Dayananda Saraswati. A little while ago, some years ago in fact, you had this problem about allowing women into a temple. The matter went to the Supreme Court, this Hiriadka temple. Should women be allowed or not? You have this problem because you have a temple with a particular rules and regulation. Think of a Hinduism without temple. Think of Hinduism as a religion in which you had no temple, no idols, no rituals, in which you simply sat cross-legged and meditated thrice a day in your own home. Then the question of allowing women to somewhere called the temple would never arise because there are no temples. The temple is a place that has a garbhagudi, that has a statue, an idol, and it has rituals. If you go to any temple, you have a list of the rituals, starting from Kumkumarchane, etc., going to Rakotsava, you pay money like in a hotel menu and you can perform a ritual. The Hindu culture that is being given to us today by certain powerful lobby is a temple-based Indian culture. If I say, I don't want your temples, you would say that I'm a bloody communist or somebody influenced by Christianity. This was said by Dayananda Saraswati. Dayananda Saraswati, a man who knew Vedas at the tip of his fingers, who used to invite Brahmin scholars for Shastrartha. He was a Brahmin himself and defeat them. It seems his final debate was held in Kashi, which was attended by 50,000 people. That I think is a little exaggeration, but a large debate. Shastrartha, it's also called in Sanskrit Vakyartha Sabha. And he defeated them. His question was this: show me in Prasthanatraya. What is Prasthanatraya? Prasthanatraya is basically Upanishad, Brahma Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita. He said, show me in Prasthanatraya where is that reference for a temple. There is no reference for a temple in Vedas, in Upanishads. There is no reference for statue and idolatry. In Satyartha Prakashana, Dayananda Saraswati does this. He said, we don't want these temples. What would have happened if we had built our nationalism on this principle? Indian nationalism begins as religious awakening. It was never a political movement. It was predominantly a religious awakening. But religion in India is closely associated with society. Who is entitled to read the Vedas and who is not entitled to read the Vedas? Vedadhikara, as they say. Shankaracharya speaks of apashuddhadhikaran. The question of social entitlement is closely related to religion. The religion that is being touted to us, given to us today, does not consider these things. Look at the ambiguities that we have. Yet, Dayananda Saraswati, who came out with these radical ideas, not as a communist, not as a person influenced by Christianity, but as a man deeply embedded in Vedas and Sanskrit. Yet this Dayananda Saraswati has unthinkable criticism about Christianity and Islam. He has such bad things to say about Islam and Christianity that Gandhi said his book Satyartha Prakashana is a book that had better not been published. Which means that religious bigotry and hatred has always been a part and parcel of nationalism. Professor Cheney spoke of the other. The other is a definitive part. If you don't have it, you can't have a nationalist ideology. Now, Dayananda Saraswati had an agenda of progressively ameliorating Hinduism. What was his idea? Hinduism is wonderful. There are certain problems, you change it and you become a good nation. Good religion is good nation. Now, look at Gandhi. One important thing we must always remember is this. Most prominent freedom movement leaders in India, such as Gandhi, Nehru, they are all NRIs. Educated in England, they did not know a single word of Sanskrit. Gandhi did not know Sanskrit. When the question of untouchability became very hot, he ran to Benares and spoke to some of the pundits there. He asked them a question: do our holy books sanction untouchability? There is no holy book in Hinduism which openly, textually says, don't touch YRZ. But that is problematic. A religion is not just what a text says. A religion is also what people practice. And what people practice may not always be there in the text. You know, I was listening to a debate between some Catholic theologians and Muslim Maulvis. The Muslim Maulvis say that Christians are wrong because they worship Jesus Christ. Islam, I think, speaks of 1,25,000 prophets, a lineage of 1,25,000 prophets. I think out of it only 3 were women. They had reservation even then. Now, Muslims accept Jesus Christ as a prophet. You cannot be a Muslim if you show disrespect to Jesus Christ. The moment Christ's name is mentioned, you have to say peace be upon him. But they refuse to accept him as the Son of God. Their challenge to the Muslims is, show me in Injil. Injil is Bible. Show me in your Bible, where exactly does it say, verbatim, word to word, I am the Son of God, worship me. You don't have those lines. So, you are doing something wrong against the Bible. But then the Christian theologians say, well, you accept Jesus Christ as a prophet, don't you? You accept him as born out of a virgin woman, don't you? Show me where exactly does it say so in Quran. It doesn't say so in Quran. So what do we have here? The text and the practice. No Hindu text specifically says don't touch X or Y or Z. But untouchability has been a definitive part of Indian society. Now, Devidas Saraswati wanted to work against it. He was for the empowerment of women. He wanted women to be educated. He wanted women to have ritual rights. These are great things. We don't even speak of these things. The right today we have doesn't speak of these things. Yet, Devidas Saraswati had a problem with Islam and Christianity. Now come to Gandhi. Gandhi was an NRI, did not know a single word of Sanskrit. And he begins in 1922 by saying that India owes a great debt to the Brahmins because they are the guardians of Indian culture. Maybe. But there were other people who said, no, that is problematic. They are also the champion of untouchability. And this question comes up and Gandhi, somebody asked Gandhi, can a sweeper read Vedas? Because Shudras and Stri, they cannot read Vedas. Can a Chaprasi read Vedas? Gandhi says that is disgusting question. You can't ask that question. Why not? Because he says, if a sweeper is a good sweeper, he will be so content in his profession that the desire to learn Vedas will never arise in him. Understand this carefully. If you are a good doctor, very happy in your profession, content in your profession, why would you ever want to be a lawyer? It's silly, isn't it? Then the questioner asks Gandhi, what if the sweeper is unhappy in his profession and thinks that you want to read Vedas? Is that possible? Now, Gandhi's answer is very unsatisfactory. He says, let the sweeper work as a good sweeper from morning 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening. Then in his free time, he can read Vedas. Who will teach him Vedas? If you really work hard physically from 8 to 6, the first thing you want to do is to eat some gudga and have some drink. Alcohol is the cheapest entertainment for those people. The idea of reading Vedas would never occur to you. I have always looked at this particular statement by Gandhi and felt very unhappy because Gandhi did not address the question properly. On several of these questions, Gandhi was flippant. widow remarriage. Of course, Gandhi changed his ideas later. Shivaram Karan speaks of an instance. What if a woman is raped? Gandhi's answers were not very acceptable. Karan, very openly speaks about these things. You see, when we look at Gandhi, when we look at these people, we have certain preconceived notion. But if you look at history as it was happening, you begin to see very many things. Now, Gandhi was not very clear about what state India would have after independence. He just said, let the British go. We will look after ourselves. And Gandhi thought of a very highly decentralized state, Panchayat Raj. And here comes Ambedkar. Ambedkar says, your ideal village is a very hotbed where untouchability grows. I would rather destroy the village system. Ambedkar very openly tells every untouchable, go to the city at least once. If you go to Bombay, it's such a large city, your caste, your color, nobody is bothered about it. And you get the freedom of anonymity. In the village, you are always the son of so and so. You are a chamar, you are a kumbara, you are a washerman. Your identity sticks to you. When you go to the city, modernity gives you a different kind of identity. And Ambedkar said, I do not want a state built on your Panchayat Raj, because that is the place where untouchability. Many of us do not know this. Ambedkar gave an interview sometime in early 50s to BBC, in which he says unbelievably harsh things about Gandhi. He says, you people read only Gandhi as he represents himself in Hindi. You do not know some of the things he has said in Gujarati. Gandhi was, if you take Ambedkar, was a conservative. I said he was a syncretist, Syncretist said our culture is all right, some changes here and there, fine. But what changes? Freedom struggle is built on three important questions: religion, society, and state. And in most third world countries, it is religion that comes up first. Gandhi's equations on religion are problematic. We have a militant right today which thrives because of some of these ambiguities. Okay? Now, of the whole plethora of leadership we have, only two people are accommodated by the militant right in India. One is Gandhi, because he is okay. Gandhi is fine. Gandhi sometimes speaks your language. Another is Ambedkar. Ambedkar just becomes a public photo. Nobody really looks at this. Dayananda Saraswati, as a conservative, progressive person, influenced three important people. One was Vivekananda, another was Savarkar, another was Tilak. Tilak first, and then these people. Look how different these three people are. Vivekananda he took the Vedic way. It becomes very important in developing Ramakrishna Math. Tilak, of course, becomes part and parcel of Indian National Congress. Savarkar, we know the rest of the story. The point I'm trying to make is the roots of nationalism, either religion or society, as a question of state, are not defined and easy. They are very, very problematic. No one person, no one party can give you one version of the story and say, this is it, this is finality. I started by saying that Ambedkar did not participate in the Indian national movement. The Muslim National League was very suspicious. The South was sleepy. There was another section which not only did not participate in freedom struggle, but wanted the British to continue. That was the Council of Indian Princes. When the British took over India in 1857, the Parliament takes over the administration of India, the Viceroy is appointed. Queen Victoria gives a written assurance to all the princes in India that their interest would be safeguarded, right? And all they have to do is to relinquish military and foreign policy. Other than that, they would be safeguarded. The Council of Indian Princes write a letter to the British, not one, several letters, in which they remind the British of this promise. You know what their argument was? They said, these Congress Walas are not trustworthy. They are traders and industrialists. They are banias. They only know cash book and profit. As traditional princes, we know our land and culture and customs. Do not leave India as one country, especially with the whole army in their hands. If you want to leave India's 600 odd principalities. We will look after our kingdoms. The Indian princes, 90% of them Hindus, did not want your freedom struggle, your kind of nationalism. Now, America, in this particular book, 1945, Pakistan or Partition of India, says two important things. He says, you people seem to think that Hinduism and Islam are sufficient ground for a nation, that is, religion as nation. He comes down heavily upon Muslims. He says, look at your religion. When did you last have a social reformation movement? When did you last have a movement for the amelioration of the condition of women? Yet you want to have a nation. What kind of nation would that be? What would be the condition of women and workers in that nation? Would I want to be a member of that nation? And then he turns to the Congress Walas and says, while you criticize the Muslim people for wanting to have a nation, you involuntarily think that you are already a nation. He says, that is questionable. He says, a Bengali Babu does not have, I am quoting his words, does not have any tender feelings for the Punjabi. And don't expect the Punjabi to have any tender feelings for the Tamilians. What was Ambedkar saying? Was he saying the nation is impossible? No. He was saying a nation can only be built on a secular constitution, on scientific principles, not on the past, not on religion. I think that is a very, very acceptable idea. Okay? Especially, as I said, we have to talk about these things in the present context. In this context, I think Ambedkar's idea is very right. If the Muslims desire to have a separate nation just because they are Muslims is wrong, then I think the same logic should also apply to the Hindus. Just because you are Hindus, you are not a nation, you cannot be a nation. Nation is not religion. Religion is a very deep experience, no doubt. It's a fundamental experience, no doubt. Religion has wonderful things to say, no doubt. This is not an argument against religion. This is an argument against the assumption that religion can automatically be the foundation of a nation. What I want you to understand is, there were people in the freedom struggle who questioned this, who said, this cannot be so. If you take Kama Sutra, for example, or the works of Kalidasa, why? Even your Yakshagana, for example, Yakshagana begins with a Hasyagana, and he says, I've wandered around the world and come back to report to you. How does it refer to the world? He said, Chappanna Ivattaru Desha. Traditionally, in Sanskrit, India was referred to as 56 nations. Anga, Vanga, Kalinga, Karnataka, Kakatiya. And Kama Sutra describes each nation as having an essence. Andhra Pradesh, if you have seen the emblem of their state, is Andhra Pradesh Rashtramu, Prabhutva. And if you go farther back than that, to the Dharma Sutras, specifically Apastamba Sutra, Bauddhayana, they speak not of a nation but of an Aryavarta. What was Aryavarta? From the southern borders of Afghanistan to Bihar. This stretch of land was called Aryavarta. This is the geography referred to in Vedas. Apart from that, there was nothing like that. There was no country. And in Manusmriti and Apastamba Sutra, it very openly says the Chaturvarnya system applies to Aryavarta. Beyond that, you have Desha Sanskriti. That is, whatever is the rules and regulations of a particular area, that's okay. In other words, I am not a meat eater, so that is my culture, wonderful. If in your country you are a meat eater, that's your culture, no problem. Even in a coercive definition, there is a recognition of plurality which we lack today. Meat eating has always, I do not know why it is a problem. I specifically remember this novel by I think it's Avasthi. The novel begins with a train journey in which the hero opens a tiffin box and eats some Vadake Kadu. He eats it. Someone else goes up the bed, three-tier bed, and eats his biryani in a secretive way. Why? If I want to eat biryani, it's my freedom. If you don't like it, it's your problem. You go away. I don't want to go away. Our ancients did not have any problem with this. Now you are defining a religion in which meat eating is seen as alien.